Good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome to ZSR and welcome to the Skyward Sword any percent tournament. It's already lowest bracket round number 4. The tournament won't be going on for way longer. Today we have a good matchup between Deesh and Chimera. Loser goes home. And without further ado, I actually want to send you over to the layout and present you with our commentator for tonight, the legendary Indy Kenobi. Hey, Indy, what's up?
Hey, Fresco, thanks for that lovely introduction. We're really excited for this match today. This is actually a rematch of a winner's bracket match that was won by Chimera over Deesh. So these two runners are quite closely matched. Their PVs are within just a minute of each other. And this match is to see who gets to face Lepilog in the losers finals. So I'm really excited to see how these two do. Will Deesh get his revenge over Chimera, or will Chimera move on to his own rematch with Lepilog in losers finals? We're just gonna wait for them to get going here. You can see from the sign-in screens that they are using different versions. Chimera is on the Japanese version, which is the fastest for the any percent speedrun, whereas Deesh, whose name is Chimera, is on the English 1.0 version. The English 1.0 version is unfortunately not the best version for speedrunning. It has both slower text and it lacks the version exclusive clip in Ancient Cistern. All right. Here we go. We're getting ready. I'm excited. I feel the tension. Do you feel it? All right, let's get excited. There they go. We're off. So the first thing you're going to see here is a bunch of cutscene skips. Cutscenes can only be skipped on hero mode or if you've seen them before on normal mode, but that's not likely. So one of the first things you'll see, which looks perhaps a little bit odd, is our runners are going to visit our friend Fledge here in the first hallway. Chimera's visiting Fledge to set a flag that will be used later on during Back in Time, whereas Deesh is using a different route which does not require that flag. Our routes will be a little bit different due to the text differences, so we'll try to explain those differences when we get to them. You can also see the big advantage that the Japanese version has already. The text is much, much faster. So even though Chimera had an extra chat with Fledge here, we're going to have Deesh catching up Chimera catching up quickly to Deesh, just based on the text. Overall, the text difference between the English version and the Japanese version is approximately 8 to 9 minutes. And so in order to win this race, Deesh is going to have to overcome that deficit. So both of our runners are coming up here to talk to Zelda. Zelda is going to trigger a couple other cutscenes in other places. There are two routes on Skyward on Skyloft here. There's what's called the safe route, which avoids having to do a 2-frame cutscene skip about 8 minutes into the run. And then there's also the fast route, which does employ that cutscene skip. It saves a variable amount of time depending on what versions you're looking at. The first Japanese version saves a very significant amount of time, somewhere around 30 or 40 seconds, whereas on the English version, it only saves 15 seconds. Now, since they're both saving here at the Lower Academy statue, it looks like they're both going to be doing the safe route, which makes a lot of sense in a race context. So, now that they've saved, they're both going to die, and we're going to see our first instance of what's known as the Back in Time glitch. So the Back in Time glitch is one in which you die, and then you choose to continue, and then immediately after continuing, you reset your console. This will give you control of Link on the title screen, but the title screen is actually a special version of Skyloft, known as Bit Skyloft. So you'll see Chimera has reset there. Deesh is right behind him. So the great thing about Back in Time is that it lets you both manipulate files and save at the same time. So we can do a lot of fun glitches with that, ranging from bit warps, which will be limited teleportation, to more complicated things like reverse bit magic, which we'll get to a little bit later. All right, so both of our runners are coming up here to the Upper Academy statue. We're going to be creating what's known as a corrupt file. So we have to delete our file and then save during the deletion. And this essentially creates a file which has no data in it. And the most useful part of that is that when you load that file, Link will immediately die because he has 0 hearts. And so that's going to be useful a little bit later for getting into Back in Time more easily. Coming up next, we have the first instance of reverse bit magic. We're going to essentially set the flag for having obtained the Goddess Sword here while we're fading out after starting a file. So we're going to start file 1 at the right time, and then during that fade out, the flag was set, which gives us the it gives us the Goddess Sword. So it doesn't look like Chimera has the Goddess Sword right now, but usually when you do a reverse bit magic trick, you have to refresh your flags in order to have it actually take effect. So we're going to use this Bruce cutscene down here to essentially reload the area with our new Goddess Sword flag, and the Goddess Sword should appear on Chimera's back. And Deesh is right behind him. All right, so they've both navigated that successfully. So reverse bit magic essentially works by changing a flag during Back in Time while you're loading one of your files. And that flag you change during Back in Time is then applied to the area where the file is saved. As we head into the Waterfall Cave here to rescue the Loftwing, you can start to pay attention to the movement that our runners are using here. There is a stamina wheel in Skyward Sword, and that stamina wheel controls whether Link can do more intensive actions such as sprinting or rolling or climbing or anything along those lines. So one interesting fact about the stamina wheel is that the last quarter of it drains more slowly than the rest of it. And so when you're moving over long distances, you want to essentially use up all your stamina until you're almost out, and then let it refill to a quarter full, and then start using that again. Another aspect of movement that's important, rolling is a little bit faster than sprinting. Every roll, if done well, saves about a frame. So if you have a short distance between you and the next stamina refill, you want to roll as much as possible. There are other small aspects to movement, such as canceling momentum going into loading zones, which lets you gain control of Link a little bit faster. When you're entering a double door, you want to enter the left-hand door because the animation leaving from the left-hand door is a few frames faster. So just little tiny things like that can really add up over the course of a 2.5-hour run like this. So it looks like both of our runners have rescued the Loftwing without incident. We're heading into the Loftwing tutorial, which is a big auto-scroller, essentially. This particular Loftwing tutorial is on a special layer of the sky, where the bounds of where you can fly are restricted. But this layer is also special because it's one of the few layers of the sky that will not crash if you try to enter it during Back in Time. And so what we really want to do now is create a save file, which will be saved right after this Loftwing tutorial, because that will preserve this layer of the sky for going into the sky during Back in Time later. So in order to do that, since both of our runners are taking the safe route, they're going to be saving and quitting at this save prompt, and then using the corrupt file they created earlier to enter Back in Time again. And then during Back in Time, since we have control over our files, we're going to copy the file 1 that we're using now to file 2. Chimera has again pulled again thanks to the wonders of the Japanese text. You can see the corrupt file in action there, immediate death upon loading. All right, so in this back in time, we need to do something a little bit extra since we're doing the safe route here. A later RBM trick requires us to have a flag associated to the practice sword. And so what we're going to do is head to the sparring hall after saving our file at the Upper Academy statue. Saving our file at the Upper Academy statue will put us there when we start that file. But then we're going to go into the sparring hall to RBM the flag that we need onto file 1. Now you can see during that save, Chimera copied file 1 to file 2, so that's going to be the file we use later to access the sky during back in time. That's the file that has the right layer. Now this is a little bit tricky because if you do this wrong, you can actually crash your console. So we need to have file 3 selected, which we did. Now we have to wait until the text starts before selecting file 1. And then we clear the last text box and start the file at the same time. So then during the fade out, you saw Link sort of finish his I got an item animation. And that's when the flag sets that gives us the practice sword that we need. So we'll see if Deesh is able to do the same thing. Looks good on this end. The other benefit of doing the bit save at the Upper Academy statue is you load into Bit Skyloft. And Bit Skyloft has certain things about it unloaded. In particular, the wall here that normally prevents access to the goddess statue. So instead of having to do the whole sailcloth and wing ceremony and then following Fi at night, we're able to enter the goddess statue right away, place the emerald tablet that we got, and skip that whole thing. And so we have skipped the sailcloth and the wing ceremony. We have successfully obtained both the goddess sword and the flag around the practice sword that we need. And so we're off to the surface once we sit through some more cutscenes. Chimera is maintaining his slight lead, partly due to the strength of the Japanese text. So Fledge here is going to give us the adventure pouch. We do need the adventure pouch, but only for one thing. We need it to be able to use a bottle. And so we do have to get this adventure pouch. It would be possible to skip it if we didn't need it for a bottle, but so it goes. Runners will also have an opportunity outside to pick up a wooden shield from Owlin. Getting the shield is actually slower because there are good shieldless strats for all of the fights we need to do. But it can be safer if runners are not confident in their shieldless strats. Chimera is going to pass Owlin up. He doesn't need the shield. He's confident in his abilities. We'll see what Deesh does in a minute here as he slogs through this English text. So Chimera is going to do a little trick here as he jumps off of Skyloft by curving his dive a little bit before calling the Lockwing. He can reach a loading zone which is closer to the Farron Pillar than the loading zone you would normally get from that particular jump-off point. Deesh has also passed up Owlin. They're both going shieldless, which is the way to go if you're confident, so it'll be exciting to see how they handle those fights later on. Chimera is going to be trying to skip a Fi text here by skydiving into the Farron Pillar from far enough away, and it looks like he's got that all under control. That skip saves only a little bit of time on Japanese, but it saves much more time on the English version. And in fact, the text speed on English means that certain tricks are faster on English but slower on Japanese. One example of this would be a digging mitts skip, which is a few seconds faster on English because we skip enough text boxes. Deesh is also doing the skydive here. It looks like he'll be okay. So as Chimera lands here in the sealed grounds, this is a good time to talk about health management. Along with stamina management and movement, health management is one of the most important aspects of Skyward Sword speedrunning. And Chimera took a hit there from a Deku Baba, which is unintentional. We want to be on as low health as possible because Back in Time requires dying to activate. And so we need to be as close to dying as we can get without actually dying. And so Chimera is going to do a side hop there, which is a little bit slower, but preserves that 2 hearts that he needs at the bottom there. Being on 2 hearts is good since we're playing on hero mode. Everything does double damage, so even the lowly Deku Babas do 2 damage, as you saw. And so 2 damage is essentially 1 hit from death for almost everything in the game, with the exception of Keese and some other minor things. So in order to play optimally, you want to be on as low health as possible, but that also means making a slight mistake in the wrong place will give you an unintentional death, and that can lose a lot of time, not just from the death itself, but because when you die, you heal back up to 6 hearts, and you are no longer on low health and ready to do Back in Time easily. Also, since we skipped the sailcloth, we are not able to cancel fall damage by using it. So anytime we have to fall from a great height, as we did here in the spiral, we are going to take 2 hearts of damage. And so that's something we're going to have to keep in mind for in a couple places later on. Yes, this is the Japanese version versus the English version. It's one of many races in this tournament which have been Japanese versus English versions. Those Japanese runners have an advantage due to their text speed. But Deesh is a very skilled runner, so we'll see if he's able to make up that deficit. All right, our runners are going to pick up this revitalizing potion here in the sealed temple. This is mostly for the bottle, although the potion does come in handy a little later on when we want to heal up before we take some damage. So skipping the sailcloth involves a trick called Back in Time, and we were able to save in a special version of Skyloft that does not have the wall that blocks the goddess statue. And so by using this Back in Time glitch, which we will see again later, we're able to enter the goddess statue without having to do the wing ceremony or the sailcloth. All right, so this is the immortal beacon placing. We're trying to place a beacon on the X on the map, and if you're safe, you're going to zoom in, but it's possible to do that without zooming in, and it is ever so slightly faster to do so. This next about 10 minutes of the game here is the least glitchy part of the game. We're going to be doing Farron Woods more or less normally. We're going to be hunting down the Kikwis so that we can get the slingshot from the Kikwi Elder, and then we'll be moving into Deep Woods from there. That's when things get a little bit weird again. We can expect this run to take about 2.5 hours. That's sort of our estimated time. Depending on how well the run goes, it may be a little bit longer. A particularly good run would be a little bit shorter. For context, the PBs for our 2 runners are 2:27:20 for Chimera and 2:28:29, I believe, for Deesh. So they're very close in their PBs, and if they have good runs, we'll be looking at about 2.5 hours. Okay, so Chimera is having a little bit of trouble with this Bokoblin fight here. Because we're in hero mode, we're starting with the upgraded Skyward Strike, which actually does Master Sword damage. So we'll be using that a lot in the early game because it one-shots Bokoblins. So what happened to Chimera is that one of the Bokoblins actually blocked his Skyward Strike, and so he had to do a little bit of improvisation to try and defeat them. Apparently Chimera just got a 2:25, so I am behind the times on his PB. Okay, so the Goron nicely activates the bird statues for you. These are essentially checkpoints where you can return to the surface. We do not want to visit that particular statue because we're going to be using it a little later. And Chimera will make his way into Farron Woods. Let's see how Deesh does with the Bokoblin fight here. If everything goes well, you get him in one shot. And that was good. Nicely done. He almost picked up a rupee there, though. That would have been an extra text box. All right, so Chimera's in Farron Woods. He's going to be talking to a lot of Kiklis. There's a certain order you go in to gather them sort of most quickly. The Kikwi Elder has the slingshot that we need in order to access the Deep Woods. Technically, we could skip the slingshot, but that would create problems later. In particular, you can't use your B button if you don't have the slingshot. And we're going to need that. So again, Chimera took 2 Skyward strikes to finish off those 2 Bokoblins. Ideally, you get 1, but it's a minor thing. He's still chugging along. Deesh is almost done with Gorko the Goron's long text here. A lot of the text difference in the run is at the beginning here, where we're sort of going through a lot of tutorial-ish text boxes that Fi pops up with. So as we get a little later into the run, the difference will start to it will stop widening. But essentially, every text box you see, Chimera is gaining a little bit of time. As someone who runs the English version myself, seeing them side to side is pretty sobering. And Deesh is able to get the Bokoblins in one shot. That's very nice. Chimera just did a little trick where if you bonk a wall, the game interprets you as being close enough to a tree to lower a vine. And that provides a quicker way to get across to the platform where the Kikwi Elder is. So we'll be using that in just a bit here. And this is our first Kikwi, Machi. All of the Kikwis are named after teas. So we got Machi here for that tea. We will have Ulu later on for Oolong tea. We'll have Erla for Earl Grey. We have Lopsa. We have the Kikwi Hermit Yerbal, who will not appear in this run. And then we have Buka, the Kikwi Elder. Most of the tribes in this game have little naming themes. So the Kikwis are named after teas. The Magmas later on are named after different metals. The people in Skyloft are largely named after birds. It's a nice little touch. All right, so Chimera has talked to the first Kikwi, Machi. There's a little trigger that requires you to talk to Machi before you can access the rest of the woods. So now Chimera is free to go gather the rest of the Kikwis. The game expects you to talk to the Kikwi Elder here, but we already know that we have to go gather 3 other Kikwis before he'll give us the slingshot. So we're just going to skip past him and go straight to those Kikwis. The tightrope here can be a little bit tricky sometimes, but Chimera handles it just fine. The game has motion controls, as you probably know. By and large, the motion controls are good. They don't give you very many problems once you get used to them, but ropes are one place where sometimes they'll just give you some trouble. All right, Chimera is continually doing these vertical skyward strikes when he turns around there, which suggests to me that he's having slight calibration issues, because you want to do a horizontal skyward strike there, because it's a wider beam, so it's more able to hit the Bokoblins than the vertical skyward strike. But he recovered nicely with his second skyward strike there. And he's going to bonk into the tree to lower Lopsa. There's actually a trick here with Lopsa where if you bonk into the tree on the perfect frame, you can actually knock him down a little bit early, and it saves maybe a second. So it's definitely what you'd call a swag strat. Chimera didn't go for it. We'll see if Deesh does. If you miss it, if you're a little too early, then you lose about 3 seconds. So most runners don't go for it. Deesh also has what you'll see his stamina bar looks like it's empty, but it's actually not. This is called the glitched stamina meter. It's only a visual glitch. Otherwise, the stamina meter works exactly as it should. Deesh also had a nice roll through the little crawl space there where he completely skipped the animation of being in the crawl space. That's very precise. So that was a nice little movement tech there from Deesh. The second Kikwi, Urla, up here has the best hiding spot. He's hiding in this patch of grass. So if Chimera does this well, we'll be able to cut all the grass without Urla moving. If you cut some of the grass and expose Urla, but there's other grass he can go and hide in, he'll start slowly walking over to that grass, and that wastes a lot of time because you have to wait for him to finish moving. So that was well done by Chimera there. We're going to push down this log here so that we can climb back up it a little bit later. There's a lot of these little logs around Farron Woods that serve as shortcuts between different parts of the woods. That's the only one we really need to use, so we spend the extra time, the extra 8 seconds to push it down. And Chimera is coming up on the third Kikwi. This is Ulu. So even in parts like this, when there's not a lot of glitches involved, you can really tell the good runners from the great runners because of movement, right? We talked about movement earlier, so if you're paying attention to exactly how these runners are moving and all of that sort of stuff, you can really see that both of these runners are quite good with their movement. All right, so Chimera has visited all the Kikwis. He's now getting the slingshot from the Kikwi Elder. That is the one time in the run where you want to pick the left text option instead of the right, because there's actually an extra text branch on the right option, which wastes a significant amount of time. So Deesh is trying to cut the grass here. He's having a little trouble with his Skyward strikes, doing some stabs instead of some horizontal strikes, but he got it in the end. Now there's a little trick you can do here with the slingshot. If you get it and jump off of the Kikwi Elder at the same time, then you can avoid having to jump off of him after. So Chimera does the side hop. This will allow the Kikwi Elder to get up immediately, and because he did a side hop, the Kikwi Elder doesn't have to rotate to talk to him. So it's a little tiny thing like that, which saves a tiny little bit of time. All right, so Chimera is going to be heading into the Deep Woods, which has a few different tricks in it. The first and most major is called Extending Blow. So Extending Blow is done by knocking back a Bokoblin so that he lands on the very edge of a ledge. And when that happens, the Bokoblin is treated as dead, but can still be targeted. And so by knocking back the Bokoblin in this way, you can perform a final blow onto the Bokoblin when he is dead. This makes the game not really sure where to send you, and so it sends you flying towards 000 as if you had performed a final blow to that point. Depending on where 000 is on your map, that can be either useful or useless, but in the Deep Woods in particular, 000 sends you flying right to the front of Skyview Temple. Unfortunately, this trick is a little bit random because when you knock back the Bokoblin, there are a few different distances he can be knocked back. And so even if you set it up correctly, if you get the wrong knockback from the Bokoblin, the trick will not work. So it's this second Bokoblin here that Chimera is going to be trying this trick on. Let's see if he gets it. Ooh, the setup looked good, but the distance was not quite right, and so he fails the extending blow, and we'll be going to the backup strat of Cube Warp. Cube Warp involves manipulating a Bokoblin into a good position so that trying to hit him with a Skyward Strike sends the Skyward Strike past the Bokoblin and up to hit a Goddess Cube, which is on the ledge there on the left, you can see. So if Chimera is able to do this, that particular Goddess Cube is the first one you get in the course of the story, and so it actually warps you to it, which skips going around the long way. And that was well done by Chimera, a nice clean cube warp. There's a follow-up trick coming up soon here. After he's done talking to the Bokoblin, there's a giant Phi text in front of Skyview Temple, and by jumping off a ledge at a particular angle and doing a jump slash, you can skip that text. And Chimera was not able to get the jump slash, so he's going to be stuck talking to Phi here. It's less punishing on the Japanese version, but you can see this is quite a long Phi text. So unfortunately, Chimera did not get extending blow, so if Deesh is able to get it, he'll catch up a little bit. Alright, so all we need to do is shoot the switch here to get into Skyview Temple. The first thing that Chimera is going to be doing... Oh, Deesh had a nice little cutscene skip there. By calling Phi at the right time, he was able to skip Phi's text about using the slingshot. It's a slightly shorter Phi text. So Chimera is going to be making a save here and then activating back in time to perform a glitch known as a bit warp. A bit warp will essentially take coordinates on Skyloft and apply them to this Skyview Temple map. And so it will essentially warp Chimera to the end of Skyview Temple. So we'll keep an eye on that while we watch Deesh try to get extending blow here. Let's see if he's able. That was a bit too far for the knockback, so Deesh will also be going for the backup strat of the cube warp. Chimera, meanwhile, is activated back in time. He'll be bonking into a tree with file 2 selected. That's an application of what's known as bit magic, which will apply a flag from file 2, which will open up the gates leading to the academy. Deesh is able to get the cube warp, so we'll keep an eye on him and see if he gets the text skip. Text skip is obviously more important on English because the text is slower. Chimera will be selecting the statue with file 1 here and then saving and starting at the same time. This will apply the coordinates from Skyloft around the Upper Academy statue to Skyview. Deesh is able to get the text skip in front of Skyview, so that's good. He'll be heading in. Chimera is in the last part of Skyview now, but the room is unloaded. And so we need to reload it in such a way that we can access the boss room. So we're going to run through here to this room with a Staldra. We need to kill the Staldra and then head back. But we're also going to do a couple extra things in Skyview here to set up a file for some RBM tricks. So after killing the Staldra here, we're going to break both of these wooden boards. That sets 2 flags that are going to be useful later on. Yeah, the title screen is actually on a version of Skyloft, and so you can move around while you have access to your files. That's the back-in-time glitch. And so the bit warp we saw there was one of the first applications known. Chimera is having a little trouble with this Skulltula here. This is one of the gatekeeping spiders. When you first learn to run this game, this spider is difficult to get past. You're supposed to have the beetle to break its string, but you can also use a Skyward strike to send it swinging and jump past it at the right time. It is technically possible to skip the beetle by doing a very, very difficult trick at the beginning of Earth Temple. You normally need the beetle in Earth Temple. We're not going to do that. That's not really RTA viable. There's a backup way to skip the beetle, but that is slower than actually getting the beetle. And we're going to need the beetle to get to set another flag on this Skyview file that we're creating for use in Back in Time later. Specifically, we need the beetle to get a red rupee after this Stalfos fight. This Stalfos fight is not too bad. You want to slash into his opening and then do a spin attack. That'll get you 3 hits at once. It takes 10 hits approximately to knock down our friend the Stalfos. Just remember, everybody, Stalfos. Alright, so Chimera is getting the beetle here. Deesh is heading in to reload the main room and break the boards here. So Deesh is not too far behind. Both the runners are putting together pretty good runs so far. Chimera is a little bit ahead here with his text advantage, but also just solid play from both runners. We'll say Deesh get past the swinging spider here. That's well done. That spider's particularly scary because you're on 2 hearts, so if you miss it, the spider will kill you, and you have to do the entire bit warp trick again. So dying in this particular section of the game is actually a really bad place to die, because you have to redo essentially the whole dungeon from the start. Chimera is taking care of the enemies here, so he'll be free to use the beetle here. Enemies can attack you while you're using the beetle, so if you don't clear out those enemies, they could kill you while you're trying to do this. And yes, as has been alluded to in the chat, there are some vines at the end of Skyview here, which are pretty tricky to work through. But before we get to that, we're going to have to talk about Girahim skip. Deesh is having a little trouble with the Stalfos here. Alright, so Chimera is going to be doing a trick called Girahim skip. By saving at that statue and dying to this Bokoblin on the tightrope, he's going to activate back in time. And we're going to be doing a reverse bit magic trick. Deesh just picked up the beetle, so he'll be following close behind. Chimera's through the scary part because he's saved here. It's no longer quite as bad if he dies. In fact, he wanted to die here. So we're going to try to activate a cutscene during Back in Time, which normally shows the Sheikah stone outside the sparring hall, which raises up to give you hints about how to play the game. So this is why we needed to get the practice sword flag onto one of our files, so that we are able to trigger that particular cutscene. So we're going to activate that cutscene, or the ability to get that cutscene. You'll notice that Chimera is being very careful about his camera here. There's actually a flag set on file 3, which will trigger an early life tree seedling cutscene. And if that cutscene triggers during this Back in Time, you're soft-locked and cannot complete the trick. So he is taking care of his camera. He's pausing here because he needs to be able to start file 1 and then roll into this cutscene. And it's hard to see during the fade-out, but the cutscene just triggered, so he's written the flag for that cutscene into Skyview here. And we'll see what effect that has in just a moment. One note about RBM tricks. They do change the flag on Skyview in this instance, but you usually need to make some other change to the to your surroundings in order to commit that flag, in order to essentially write it to memory. So by doing the trick here and then going to get the boss key, Chimera is able to use the flags that he's naturally setting in knocking down these vines to commit the RBM that he just did. So yes, there is a vines tutorial for getting across these vines quickly. Chimera avoided out once. Avoiding out on the vines there just feels really bad because you have to wade through the whole animation of Link falling into the void, spawning back at the top, slowly picking himself up. It's like Link is chiding you. Chimera is taking this a little bit safe here. You're not normally supposed to take these vines back to the main area. There's a different path you can take, which takes you back across the tightrope, but the vines are quicker. He's just having a little bit of trouble here with his menuing. I think he was able to save correctly. He's got to copy file 1 to file 3, though, so that we have the Skyview file we need. And he's set things up so that he's able to go through. That was a little bit soon. I'm not sure that worked. On Chimera, you can see the effect of the RBM. The door behind Girahim is open. So he just run past him, and he's done the fastest Girahim fight you've ever seen. Deesh unfortunately missed the second vine with the slingshot, so he has to void out there. Chimera has finished Skyview Temple. Nothing happens to Girahim. Girahim just hangs out in Skyview. Eventually he catches up with us later on. but we just leave him there. He seems okay. Deesh has voided out a couple times now. He's having trouble with the vines. Made it to the end okay. He's still got to come back. All right, so we have a very important trick coming up on Chimera's screen. This is going to be the early Elden Pillar, which is a little bit of a misnomer because we're not really getting it early, but we are going to gain the ability to enter the Elden Pillar on file 2. So if you remember, file 2 was the file that had the correct layer in the sky for the Loftwing tutorial. And so by putting the Elden Pillar onto file 2, that Elden Pillar is actually in bounds in the Loftwing tutorial, and so we'll be able to use that Elden Pillar to access the surface during Back in Time. All right, Deesh has made it through the vines now. He's heading into Girahim. Chimera is going to be bonking the tree to open the gates, but then he's also going to be collecting a rupee with file 1. This is going to load the ruby tablet into Back in Time. He's got to bonk the right part of the tree to get the rupee to spawn, which he did. So he's going to get the rupee there. He did a neat little jump slash there to skip the rupee text. Now he wants to save file 1 at the Upper Academy statue here, but he also wants to activate a flag, which will allow him to raise the pillar during Back in Time. I don't think he saved file 1. Unless he did it where I missed it. Deesh managed to get through Skyview, so he did succeed in his Girahim skip. You'll notice that Chimera has raised the pedestal in Back in Time. He did that by selecting file 3, or rather selecting the UA statue while the file 3 was open. That's one of the flags from good old Skyview. And now Chimera has placed the tablet. He's going to be waiting for a specific time to start his file 2. And if he starts it at the right time, which it looks like he did, then he'll be able to see, yep, he's got the Elden Pillar on file 2, but he did forget to save file 1, and so he's going to have to sit through the Machi cutscene outside Skyview and go from there. Deesh is attempting to die to this Bokoblin here, but the Bokoblin did not see him. He's too fast. That Bokoblin will sometimes not be there if you are too slow saving for the Girahim skip. So if you ever have that trouble that the Bokoblin isn't there on that file, it's because you were a little too slow saving. So Chimera decided not to watch the cutscene, but instead to do a bit save. He's going to save and then start his file, and that will warp him up to Skyloft. He's still going to bonk the tree to open the doors, but he doesn't have to do any of the other stuff that he did last time. He just has to make it to the statue to do his bit save. So that was the first significant error, I think, from either runner, apart from the vines from Deesh. Deesh had some trouble with the vines, and Chimera is having to redo this bit to do a bit save. Chimera looks like he'll still be ahead, but the gap has narrowed. Deesh is saying that he's getting confused between the different routes that he's been running lately. He did a 100% run recently, and I think he was doing all dungeons as well. So this is now his third category in just a little bit of time. So our Chimera is going to be placing the Ruby Tablet normally because we do also need the Elden Pillar on file 1. So we're going to do that normally, and then both runners will be heading to Elden. Deesh has to get the timing right for the early pillar on file 2. I think that will be good for Deesh. And Deesh is confident he's not even going to look to see if the pillar's there. He's just saving and heading out. This is also the point where our runners are going to want to use their revitalizing potion to heal up. I think Chimera has already done that. Deesh will be doing that soon. The next trick that we're going to see in Elden is a bit warp that will require us to fall from a great height, and it will actually deal 4 hearts of damage to us. So if we don't use the revitalizing potion here, we will die after doing that trick, and we want to avoid that. So the revitalizing potion is particularly convenient here for allowing us to survive that trick. Yeah, so the sword is still in the pedestal because of the way we obtained it. If you remember, we did the reverse bit magic trick to obtain the goddess sword. What that did was write the flag saying that we have the goddess sword into our inventory, but we don't have the flag saying that the goddess sword isn't out of the pedestal. So the goddess sword is in the pedestal, but on our backs at the same time. Yes, we have cloned the goddess sword. All right, Chimera is doing this bit warp now. He's going to die to this convenient fire chew, although it is slightly faster to die in the lava, so you try to shake the chew off after 4 hearts and take the last 2 hearts in the lava. The lava is faster because you don't have the animation of Link collapsing, exhausted to the ground, and dramatically dying. So this is actually a pretty straightforward bit warp. It was one that was found very early. We're going to be heading to the Bazaar statue and doing a bit warp there. However, the positioning is a little bit important because what we're actually doing is bit warping into a goddess cube. And we need to set up at the very edge of the goddess cube so that it essentially pushes us through the floor and into a loading zone underground. So that looks like a good positioning from Chimera. If everything goes right, he'll be falling into a void and hit a loading zone, which he has done. This is where we're going to be taking the 4 hearts of damage. It's a little faster to do a jump slash because you gain control a little more quickly on the ground. You'll see Chimera went into C up there that saves some camera movement, so it's just a little tiny optimization. Neither runner was able to get extended blow, although Deesh did get the 5 tech skip while Chimera did not, so Deesh gained a slight amount of time there. Here's the digging mitt fight. This is the last sort of example of using the upgraded Skyward strike to kill a bunch of the goblins at once. And again, Chimera get a vertical Skyward strike from that. He's looking for the horizontal one. He keeps getting the vertical ones. He's got to be careful here because he only has 2 hearts. Alright, he's safely through the fight, although that was a bit of a mess. We'll see if Deesh is able to make up some time here. He's right behind him, falling into the underground section. So there's the digging mitts. I mentioned earlier it's actually possible to skip the digging mitts. It's slower on Japanese because Japanese has faster text. And while it would be faster on English, we actually are going to use the digging mitts for something a little later on. So you would only skip the digging mitts in the version of the game that has cistern clip, that is the English 1.0 version, NTSCU 1.0. This is a fun little trick. If you blow up this fire up with this bomb, for whatever reason, you don't take damage. Looks like a cleaner digging mitts fight from Deesh there, so he's going to be heading out as well. Chimera's maintaining his slight lead. We do have a nice trick coming up here called circles. If you roll into this upcoming cutscene in the right way, Link will be running around in circles during the beginning of the cutscene. Chimera was not able to get it. To be clear, this trick matters very little. It's another one of those swag strats. If I remember right, it actually loses you a frame if you get it, but it looks cool, so it's totally worth it. All right, so Chimera is going to be heading for another RBM trick. For this one, we're going to need to access nighttime Skyloft during Back in Time, which requires a specific file setup. In particular, if you try to access nighttime bit with the hero tunic, bit will crash. And so this is another useful property of that second file we have, which was saved right after the Loftwing tutorial. We don't yet have the hero's tunic on that file. And so that file is able to access nighttime back in time without issue. So Deesh is heading to do the same trick here. Chimera is going to be heading across the river. He's going to be sleeping in a house for nighttime. No circles from Deesh either. All right, we're entering the building to sleep tonight here. A little bit of trouble with the bed there, but time to take a quick nap. Our runners are in the same back in time, so this is a pretty close race here so far. Yeah, about 40 seconds, but 40 seconds is actually not a big deal in this game. There are tricks there. If you fail them, you will lose minutes. All right, so you saw that Chimera slashed the grave and then started the file while pushing it. That starts the shed cutscene during the fade out for the file. And so we have RBM'd that particular flag onto our Elden Volcano set of flags here. Deesh will be trying the same thing. We're going to be running up the slopes here towards Earth Temple. Now, if you remember this part of the game casually, you were supposed to gather the 5 different key shards to construct the key to let you into Earth Temple, and that involved digging stuff up and doing all sorts of crazy fun stuff. All right, Deesh is also able to get the grave correctly, so he's going to be heading up right behind Chimera. Okay, so we're heading up here to Earth Temple. Earth Temple is one of the most difficult parts of the run because there's just a lot of small tricks that can really add up to a bunch of time saved or a bunch of time lost. And to cap it all off, we have Caldera, which is one of the more frustrating fights in the run, thanks to his very sketchy hitbox. Chimera is taking this part very slowly. It's possible to run up here without having to kill any of these Bokoblins, but we're making better safe than sorry for Chimera. We're heading into this cutscene here. These Magma are talking about this giant locked door leading to Earth Temple, but what they don't tell you is the door is a lie. That door isn't actually there right now. Deesh is right behind, but Deesh will be losing time here due to text. So the first thing you're going to see the runners do inside Earth Temple is flip their camera around. This is to manipulate a lava platform. Basically, if things are out of sight in this game, they're not actually running, they're not loading. I told you that door was not locked. And so Chimera is going to flip the camera around here to delay a lava platform cycle until the right time so he can get on it right away. Got to be a little bit careful of that Keese, but the Keese was nice this time. There we go. Now we're going to do some cutscene skips here by hitting those ropes and jumping off the stairs at the right time. The cutscene that normally shows the drawbridge lowering tries to trigger, but can't because Link is in midair, and so you're able to skip it. You can't skip the beetle cutscene, but you can skip this one over here. This is the most important one since the last one is the longest. And we're able to do that well. Deesh is coming in here. He's about 45 seconds behind entering Earth Temple. Chimera is being careful with this Lieselfos. It's possible to just dodge it, but safer to just kill it. We're going to use a Skyward Strike to blow up the bomb. And now we're going to be setting up for another RBM trick. This one is a little bit special. It's actually going to do exactly the same things you did before. We want the same flag written into Earth Temple that we wanted written into Elden Volcano. However, we're going to get a little bit of an added bonus because of the way the flags are set up on this particular file. By doing this RBM and pushing in the grave like we did last time, we'll actually be able to open up the Thunderhead at the same time. And so when we leave Earth Temple, we're going to go to the Thunderhead, even though we technically haven't done any of the things we're supposed to do to open it up. This is the latest variant of a trick called Early Thunderhead, which has been around since the very beginning of Skyward Sword speedrunning, and for a long time, it was really the only major sequence break in this run, being able to skip all of the side quest stuff, like fighting Imp 1, repairing Scrapper, and all of that. These days, Early Thunderhead seems pretty tame in comparison to some of the other crazy stuff we do. Alright, so Deesh is setting up for the same RBM. I alluded to this last time, but when we're leaving the house here after sleeping tonight, we have to have file 2 selected, like so. Otherwise, the console will crash, and you will have to reboot the entire thing. But no issues from Chimera. And he successfully gets the push. So now we need to commit this flag, so we're going to go and get the bomb bag. It is possible to skip the bomb bag. However, it is extremely difficult and only saves a very little bit of time. There's also a way to skip this first Magma text, but the text is short enough in Japanese that it's not particularly worth it. We'll see if Deesh ends up going for it on his end. It's a little more worth it with the English text. Another little skip here from Chimera. If he's able to roll this bomb under at the right time and then roll into the crawl space, you're able to skip this bomb exploding cutscene, but we weren't able to do this here. Looks like Deesh is also not going to attempt the Magma text skip. So we have to kill the 2 Lieselfos in order to get the bomb bag. And Chimera has fallen prey to the bad hitboxes. So the Lieselfos, when you knock them back, if they're too close to the edge, their hitbox for the finishing blow will be over the lava. And in that cases, you'll sometimes hit them and jump into the lava, or just go through them completely straight into the lava, and that has gotten Chimera this time. And so Deesh has pulled ahead now. Chimera will be able to head back in to try and finish up this fight. Both Deesh and Chimera are using the slingshot to try and cancel the cutscene that usually plays at the start of this fight. That was pretty close on Deesh's end, too, for the same issue that got Chimera. Deesh gets through the fight first. Chimera's got to watch out a little bit here. Oh, he got the lizard tail, so he's stuck watching the menu. Alright, we got the bomb bag from Deesh. Chimera's right behind him. Now, Deesh is going to have to death warp still to reload the area so that the platforms are raised. Chimera, since he's already died, does not have to death warp again, but would have to take the boulder over to the center platform. So it's going to be interesting to see how close they are heading into the Caldera fight. But this is neck and neck so far. Most of the tricky stuff in Earth Temple is now done with, except for the Caldera fight itself. And there's the Death War from Deesh. This is going to reload the area so the RBM flag will take effect. That's going to raise the platforms over here leading out of this main room. It looks like Deesh is going to be ever so slightly ahead. Got to watch the cutscene, and this is going to be very close heading into Caldera. Chimera is picking up some extra seeds here. If you're economical with your seeds, you don't need to pick up any extra, but it is a little bit safer. Looks like Deesh has about a 10-second lead. So one strategy on these slopes here is called Stutter Sprinting. If you sprint while essentially pressing and releasing A continually, you're able to stutter sprint up the slope and extend the distance you can actually run. In this particular case, it gives you just enough distance to get all the way up this long ramp. Normally, you're supposed to go around the side to blow up some rocks and use that sort of rest stop halfway up in order to avoid the boulders. But we're able to avoid that here through judicious use of stutter sprinting. All right, so both of them are heading up here to grab the dragon sculpture, which will let us fight Caldera. And we're going to have our Indiana Jones moment here on Deesh's screen first, where the giant boulder comes out of the dragon and tries to squish you. This boulder is our old friend Caldera in disguise. It's not too hard to avoid, but if for some reason you do manage to get hit by it, it is an instant kill no matter how healthy you are. So the Caldera fight coming up here, our goal is to get what's called a tricycle, or a 3-cycle fight. There are a couple different strategies for doing this, so it'll be interesting to see which ones the runners use. He's just having some trouble with his calibration here. There he goes. But essentially, the goal is to keep Caldera at the bottom of the ramp. As his health gets lower, this is almost synced. As his health gets lower, he'll eventually start walking all the way up to the top of the ramp and then rolling all the way back down to try and hit you. And so we want to avoid that. And so we're going to carefully manipulate Caldera's health to avoid triggering that particular threshold and try to deal enough damage in the 3rd cycle to skip it completely. We're going to refill on bombs here. The Caldera fight, if done optimally, takes 5 bombs. Over the course of the run, we need to use 9 bombs total. So if we fill up to 10 here, we don't really need to fill up any more. But you may see some of the runners grab a couple extra bombs just for safety. Bombs are going to be the most efficient way of activating back in time from pretty much now to the end of the run. We'll sometimes use lava instead to avoid that cutscene I mentioned earlier of Link dramatically falling to the ground. But bombs are going to be very useful for activating back in time. So here comes the Caldera fight. Due to the text differences, it's entirely possible Chimera will be ahead when the fight actually starts. Yep, Chimera has pulled ahead thanks to the text. I'm very sad about the text, by the way. All right, so I'm going to send him back down with a bomb. Now, usually we're going to plant a second bomb here. Okay. It's better to have him eat 2 bombs because that opens up 1 complete side of his eye. Essentially, Caldera has a left, a center, and a right. But there's also a top and bottom for each of those. And so you want to open up both top and bottom on one of the sides. So that's why we try to feed him 2 bombs right at the beginning here. I think Chimera is triggered the phase he wants to avoid, so he did not get a 3-cycle fight. Deesh is going to be close if he gets the double hit here. Not quite, he just missed. And Chimera's getting trolled because his eye is staying away. Caldera's eye will dart around randomly. Deesh gets through the fight first. Chimera has to wait for him to come all the way back down again. Chimera is getting dangerously close to what we call a naked Caldera, where you have destroyed all of the rocks around him. There we go, Chimera gets through it. So a rougher fight has put Deesh in the lead. But again, it's very close. So we're getting close to halfway through the run, and our runners are pretty much neck and neck still. Deesh is trying to show off with his B wheel there and ends up jump slashing. That's cool. He's going to grab at least a couple bombs here extra. You want to be on 5 leaving this fight. 6 is nice and safe. Chimera went all the way down to 3 bombs, so he's going to have to pick up a few here. You can see why the Caldera fight is one of our least favorite fights. Chimera's going all the way up to 7 bombs, so he should be more than set for the rest of the run. So as I mentioned earlier, now that we're done with Earth Temple, we're going to be heading to the Thunderhead, which opened up as a result of what we did in our RBM. Looks like it's about a 20-second lead for Deesh at this point. Inside the Thunderhead, we're going to get Ferora's Courage, and then we're going to do another RBM trick, which will activate the Lanayru pillar onto our first file. Then we're going to go to Lanayru, and if you enjoyed the Lanayru section of this game, I apologize because it will only feature very briefly in this speedrun. In fact, if you go and get a snack at the wrong time, you're going to miss Lanayru completely. I will be here to update you when you get back, if you do want to go and catch a snack. We do have to be a little bit careful flying to the Thunderhead here. There's a region of sky where tornadoes like to spawn, and they can spawn quite suddenly. If they do spawn and they hit our runners, that's game over, and they'll respawn back at the entrance to Elden. So Deesh is going to be taking a little bit of a circuitous route here to try and avoid that, which he does successfully. This loading zone into the Thunderhead, by the way, is extremely weird. Chimera on the other screen looks like he has also managed to avoid the tornadoes. So that's good. Yeah, if you're gone for 10 minutes, you're going to miss Lanayru, just to let you know. These sky tails here can be a little bit tricky too. It's very easy to take some damage there. Alright, Deesh has made it to the Isle of Songs. This puzzle is pretty straightforward. There is a slight cutscene skip at the end of it. If you do a side hop at the right time, you can skip a short 3-second cutscene. You will miss all of Lanayru if you leave for the next 10 minutes. The entirety. We are never going back. This is a really exciting race so far, nice and close. However, a lot of the difficult tricks are still to come, so it's still anybody's race. Still to come, we have the infamous Water Basin skip. We have Song of the Heroes skip. We have Ballad of the Goddess skip. We have Ancient Cistern reverse bit warp. Lots of stuff still to do. Okay. So we've gotten Furor's Courage and we want to activate back in time, but because of the properties of the cutscene we just watched and the area we're in, we're not able to activate back in time inside the Isle of Songs here. So we're going to be leaving and then blowing ourselves up. This is our first use of bombs to activate back in time. I'd say the hardest part of the run is probably... Okay, I think there isn't really a super hard part as long as you're well practiced, but I think probably the hardest part are some of the RBMs that are coming up. So Water Basin Skip, I think, is probably the hardest RBM because you end up having to do a skydive during back in time. There's a... the Ballad of the Goddess Skip can be screwed up pretty easily, but if you know what you're doing, it's not too bad. Same with Song of the Hero Skip. As long as you know what you're doing for Song of the Hero Skip, it shouldn't cause an issue. All right, so we're going to save at the Lower Academy statue so that we respawn here after we're done with this whole thing. We bonked the tree to open the gates. We got the rupee to load now the Amber Tablet into back in time. And so now we're going to head to the end. We're going to head to our goddess statue here. And we're going to do a very similar thing to what we did with the Elden Pillar. We're going to trigger the cutscene during back in time and start our file at just the right time. Yeah, there is another RBM that Xiao Plenty mentioned called the Imp 2 RBM, which is a faster way to trigger the Imp 2 RBM, or the Imp 2 fight, rather. But that's actually slower. It's removed from the latest route on the Japanese version. I don't know if Deesh is going to do it because it is a little bit better on the English version because it skips a lot of text boxes. Yes, if this is your first time watching a Skyward Sword run, do ask questions because I understand this is very confusing to watch. We're just on the title screen doing stuff and magic happens. That's why we call it reverse bit magic. Actually, the reason we call it reverse bit magic is a very long story that I won't get into here. But it kind of continues the tradition of glitches in Skyward Sword, or Zelda in general, not having the best names. All right, so both of our runners got the Lanayru pillar up. They're going to be heading to Lanayru, and as soon as they get there, they're going to save and activate back in time. The reason we're using multiple files for the run is so that we can have certain flags set on certain files, because anytime you select a file during the back in time glitch, you load the flags that are associated to that file. So for instance, the second file we have here has flags which will open the gates around the academy if we bonk into a tree or make some other changes. So we have that file there for that reason, but also to give us a file that will let us enter Farron Woods during back in time. That's the whole layer setup with the sky that I was mentioning at the beginning. And I'll talk more about that once we get there. The third file was the file we have saved in Skyview. And if you remember, we did a lot of extra stuff there, right? We broke a couple boards. We got a red rupee with a beetle. So there's a bunch of flags set on that file, which also let us do quicker things during back in time. So we're actually going to see that here on Deesh's screen. He's got file 3 selected, and he's going to talk to the Bazaar statue. And what that will do is actually open up the shed in the graveyard. We're going to be making our way to the Batro area. Now we have to be a little bit careful here with our camera. If we move the camera in the wrong way, we can trigger the early life tree seedling cutscene, but Deesh successfully avoids it. It was a little bit scary there for a minute, but we avoided it. File 3 also has a flag set which allows that particular door that Deesh just went through to be unlocked. So because that is unlocked, we're able to enter Batro's area here. Now, Chimera is going to take the lead here. He's close enough to Deesh that the faster Japanese text here is going to put him in the lead. Batro's text that we have to sit through here for this particular RBM is 29 seconds slower on the English version than the Japanese version. Okay, so we've scared Batro. He's going to be telling us about gratitude crystals, which is this whole set of side quests in Skyward Sword. You may remember them from playing casually. He has a lot of explanation to do about it, which is why Chimera is going to take the lead, probably by a fair amount here. But we essentially want to start file 1 at the same time that we clear the last text box, because then that sets a flag which corresponds to something specific in Lanayru that we need. He's already ahead, Chimera. And he's done. So now, remember, we have to commit the flag, so Chimera is going to turn around and shoot an eye with a slingshot to make a hidden rupee appear. That's enough to commit the flag, and now he's going to leave and fly back into Lanayru. The flag that we just committed, Deesh finally finishes the Batro text. The flag that we just committed corresponds to a statue. Deesh missed the eye, so he's going to have to shoot at the end. There we go. So I've been trying to slow play this so you can see how ridiculous it is. When we go to land in Lanayru, there's suddenly a second statue available. And it happens to be the statue which is inside the Temple of Time. Now, if you remember normally, the Temple of Time is blocked off by a giant pile of rubble. And you can see there's the pile of rubble. But because we were able to RBM the flag for this statue, we can land on the other side of the rubble. And now we're going to go through this loading zone, which is the back entrance to Lanayru mining facility. And then we're going to turn around and leave immediately. And we have now obtained the Goddess Harp. We have skipped the entirety of Lanayru mining facility. So Chimera was not able to get the 2-frame text skip here, so he's going to have to listen to Fi talk a little bit. Deesh is getting the harp right now. It's just a flag. That particular statue, there's a flag that tells us whether you visited that statue or not. And it happens to correspond to talking to Batro there. The other thing that Batro text does, Deesh is able to get the text skip. He's going to be activating back in time, so we're getting a bit of a route divergence here, but we are very close together with Chimera with a slight lead. Chimera is going to be flying to Farron to talk to Groose and do the Furor's Silent Realm. Deesh is going to be activating back in time, and I believe he's going to be doing Ballad of the Goddess skip right now, so I'll try to explain both of these simultaneously. What Deesh is going to be doing is saving file 2 at a statue. This is going to unlock the ability to call your Loftwing. And so we're going to maneuver to a jump-off point, call the Loftwing, and during the fade out to the sky, we have to select file 2. That's because file 2, remember, has the correct layer set for the sky, corresponding to the Loftwing tutorial. And the Loftwing tutorial won't crash during back in time. So if he did not select file 2 there at the right time, he would have crashed his console. So now, because we put the Elden Pillar onto file 2 earlier, we are able to glide our way over to the Elden Pillar and access not Elden, but Farron Woods during back in time. This is because the game always treats the first time you enter a pillar as your first time going to the surface and always sends you to Farron Woods, even if it's not the Farron Pillar that you enter. Every time we change loading zones or we go through a loading zone here and back in time, it matters what file we have. That affects what's loaded into the next area. So we're selecting file 3 here so that those flags are loaded into the back in time version of Sealed Grounds that we're going to be hitting here in a minute. Chimera, meanwhile, is heading over to the Farron Trial. He's going to be doing a trick called Harp Cancel. where if you cancel playing the harp at the right time, you can skip the cutscene of watching Fi sing the song. That saves a significant amount of time, but it's kind of a tricky trick. Deesh, on the other hand, is going to be heading to the behind the temple area there. He used one of the flags on file 3 to lower that log so that he can take this shortcut. Ooh, he ran out of stamina there. And now Deesh is going to be talking to Groose during Back in Time so that he can set a story flag that he's going to carry into the sealed temple so that he can get the ballad, or rather raise the Gate of Time. Now he has to do this without deselecting file 2 for the rest of this time period here. If he deselects file 2, he'll lose the flag that he's getting here from talking to Groose. Chimera missed the harp cancel, so he's stuck listening to Fi sing her beautiful song. He'll be heading into the trial here. Deesh has opened up the copy screen to help him avoid deselecting the file. So by doing this in the right way, he's able to enter the sealed temple. Now he's going to select file 2 as soon as possible here, enter the circle. This will give him Ballad of the Goddess, but he has to start file 1 at the end of this text box. And this is actually going to reverse bit warp him into the cutscene, which raises the Gate of Time. This is actually a very important trick that can only be done from a save prompt, because if you do it from a different statue, it will apply the coordinates of that statue to the sealed temple. And the sealed temple is very small, so you're probably going to end up out of bounds. So because we just saved at a save prompt after the harp, we're able to reverse bit warp into that cutscene and end up right where we're supposed to, and that raises the Gate of Time while skipping having to play the harp to learn the Ballad of the Goddess. So now Deesh is activated Back in Time again, and he should be doing Song of the Heroes skip. Chimera is heading into the first Silent Realm for Roar's Silent Realm. There are 4 Silent Realms in this game. We're only going to see 2 of them. So the Silent Realms, you have to collect all 15 tiers without getting caught by the Guardians. The Guardians are immobile unless one of the Watchers spots you. So we want to collect the tiers as efficiently as possible while still dodging the Watchers with the lanterns up there. So Deesh is selecting the Upper Academy statue here with file 1. This is setting the flag 7x02 onto file 1. And if we're able to do this in the right way, we will keep that flag all the way onto Farron Back in Time. Yeah, I would say the Silent Realms are an improved version of the Twilight Princess Twilight Realms. If you mean the first imprisoned fight, we do not do that fight. There will be an imprisoned fight towards the end of the run, but we are not there yet. All right, so Deesh is heading to Farron. He's going to be entering with file 3 selected. Chimera is going to pick up the light tree, the light fruit here. The purpose is to refill his stamina. Because it's the first light fruit you get a little cutscene there, and that refills your stamina. The early Thunderhead trick we talked about earlier is what skips Imprisoned 1. Normally you would have to fight Imprisoned 1 as part of the side quest to open up the Thunderhead, but by doing that trick we no longer have to fight Imp 1. Alright, Deesh is going to be entering behind the temple here with file 2. And then he's going to do a particular kind of bit save at the statue out here. He needs to do it in such a way that he's preserving the flag that's on file 1. So we're going to be using the save and quit menu here. We have to select file 2, and then we have to back out like so. So I think that'll be okay for Deesh. So let's pay close attention to Deesh's screen here. He's going to enter Farron Woods with file 2. That is going to cause the initial Fi cutscene to play. During that cutscene, he's going to select and start file 1 and then cancel the cutscene. And if you see Link tense a little in Z targeting, then the cutscene has triggered. It looked like it was good to me. I think that was a good Song of the Heroes skip for Deesh. The gap is difficult to tell right now because the routes have diverged. The Japanese and English routes are different at this point. At the point where we diverged, Chimera had a short lead of possibly 10 to 15 seconds. Deesh is now going to be heading to do the trial that Chimera just did, but Deesh has already done Ballad of the Goddess skip and Song of the Hero skip, and those are things that Chimera has not done. Chimera will not do them until after Fire Sanctuary towards the end of the run, so we're not really going to know who's ahead until they're fighting in Prison 2, and that's going to be about a little under an hour from here. Yeah, so to kind of summarize, Deesh has now raised the Gate of Time in the Sealed Temple, and he has unlocked the door leading to Hylia's realm in the past. Deesh is now going to try the harp cancel that Chimera was unable to get. Chimera has activated Back in Time. He's going to be doing a crystal dupe. Because of the Batro RBM we did to skip all of Lanayru, we also have the ability to get Gratitude Crystals on File 1. It's another one of those 2-for-1 deals. Deesh has a very nice harp cancel, so he's going to save some time on Chimera there. Chimera is going to be heading to the statue to do a bit save here. If you notice, he copied File 1 to File 3. That's so that he can do the Ballad of the Goddess skip later. File 3 has the right layer set to visit the Sealed Temple. So here comes our crystal dupe. He's going to be getting the crystals from Rena here during Back in Time, but starting the file as he gets them. So this will put the crystals onto File 1, but they actually still exist in the normal file, so he could get them again if he wants to. But the point of doing this is to get 5 crystals so that the next time we talk to Batro, he'll give us the medium wallet. Because the medium wallet sets another flag that we're going to need in Elden real quick here. So that looks good on Chimera's end. He's going to head to Elden to do the Elden Trial. Unfortunately, normally to do the Elden Trial, you need Din's Power, the song, which you normally need to beat Sandship to do. So we're going to be doing an RBM to skip all of that. So this particular RBM that Chimera is about to do isn't going to look too fancy, but it is going to skip pretty much all of the second visit to Lanayru. Deesh is using a bit of a tricky route here. He's going to charge this Guardian down at the beginning, but he does get the first tier. This route that Deesh is doing, if done well, saves a few seconds, like 2 or 3 seconds, over the route that Chimera used, which is the more traditional route. All right, Chimera is saving to set up for the RBM I mentioned earlier. We're going to go visit Batro again and get the medium wallet. I find it very amusing that we do sort of the first 3 parts of the Gratitude Crystal side quest, but we do all of them during Back in Time. Deesh fell into Waking Water here. He's going to have to dodge this guy. That's very dangerous. That was a little scary. He got through it. Chimera is going to be bonking the tree here to open Batro's shed. He no longer has the Skyview file that lets us do that by looking at a statue, so he has to do it the long way instead. By getting the rupee, he's able to load the Water Dragon scale into Back in Time, so he can take a slightly faster route to the graveyard by doing his swimming here. Saves a couple seconds on movement. Now he's into Batro. Deesh is finishing up his trial here. Once Deesh is done here, he's going to be doing pretty much the same stuff that Chimera is doing. So the big difference in the route here is English does the Ballad of the Goddess skip and the Song of the Hero skip earlier than the Japanese version does. So it's the second text box here that Chimera has to start on. Looks like he's all set there. And now to actually load the trial in, we've set the flag, but we have to reload the area to get it to take effect. So we're going to death warp. That's the fastest way to reload the area. Deesh is finishing up his trial. He's got to pick up the last 2 tiers here. He had a little bit of trouble with that one particular guardian, but it's otherwise not too bad. And Chimera is going to be starting the Elden Trial, which is the second of 2 trials that we do. This is the longest trial, the Elden Trial, and there's not too much to it. It's a pretty standard route. There's a neat little side hop that's done in the middle to sort of skip from the first half to the last half and then go back. But basically with the Elden Trial, you want to avoid falling into lava. There's a couple of cycles that are important to try and get, so we'll see if Chimera is able to get them. Deesh should be heading up to the viewing platform statue to start the Rena back in time. To pick up the crystals. The Elden Trial is required in order to get the Fire Shield Earrings, because we need the Fire Shield Earrings to activate or to enter the Volcano Summit. The Volcano Summit is where Fire Sanctuary is, and we need Fire Sanctuary in order to trigger Imp 2, and we need Imp 2 in order to be able to go to the past. So that whole chain of dependencies means we have to do the Elden Trial. If it was possible to access Volcano Summit early, we could skip these earrings. But so far, we haven't been able to figure out how to do that yet. That's probably the next biggest thing that can be found in this category. Volcano Summit early would be sort of the biggest break we could have at this point. This is the side hop I was mentioning earlier. It's a neat little side hop off the cliff onto that little platform. This watcher here on the second bone bridge is a cycle you want to try and avoid. Chimera's had to wait a little bit, but it's not too bad. You'll notice when Deesh saves here, he has to switch from file 1 to a different file. That's because there's a flag set on file 1 which will trigger the early Thunderhead cutscene, and that cutscene soft locks back in time. So he switches to he saves file 1 so that he can respawn there after he gets the crystals, but he has to switch to file 2 to essentially avoid the flag that would trigger early Thunderhead. Alright, so Deesh is doing the same trick. Deesh is going to check just to make sure he got those crystals. It's a really unfortunate thing if you get to the Batro RBM after this and find out that you messed up the crystal RBM, because then you won't give you the medium wallet and you have to redo both RBMs. So it's a bit of a safety just to check and see if you got them. It wastes a few seconds, but it doesn't hurt, especially in a race context like this. Chimera hits a good cycle with that Watcher, so he's all set there. This is another tricky little jump in the Elden Trial. You want to jump onto the bone bridge from up there. That was well done on Chimera's end. Deesh will be setting up the same RBM that Chimera did earlier. And again, really right now, Deesh is following in Chimera's footsteps, but he has already done the Ballad of the Goddess skip, and he has already done the Song of the Hero skip. He is also quite fortunate that he remembered to save there. If he had activated back in time without saving, he would have had to redo the entire Rena RBM. Chimera has just a few more tiers here, and then he'll be heading into Volcano Summit. Volcano Summon has a couple RBMs in it to get us into Fire Sanctuary early, and Fire Sanctuary is full of RBMs. We basically do Fire Sanctuary by writing 4 flags in and then beating the boss. But as you'll see, there's a bit of an interlude in the middle of Fire Sanctuary. Deesh still has the Skyview file, so he's able to open the shed by using the statue. Chimera is finishing up his trial. He got the Fire Shield earrings. So Deesh got the wrong text box there, and it's because he didn't select file 1 before talking to Batro. He could have still saved that. If he had selected file 1 and talked to Batro again, he would have been able to get the crystals. But because he opened the splash screen, it loaded the flags from file 3, and file 3 does not have 5 crystals. So he thought he had messed up the RBM by not getting the crystals, but really he just had the wrong flags loaded because he had file 3 loaded instead of file 1. So if he had just talked to Batro again, he would have been fine, but he didn't realize that, and so he's doing the whole RBM again. How many back in times do they do? It varies a little bit based on the route, but it's somewhere on the order of 20 over the course of the 2.5-hour run. All right, so Deesh is trying this again. Chimera is damaging down to 2 hearts before a string of RBMs that he's about to have here. All right, so see that he loaded file 1. He's able to get the right text box that time. So D should be fine now. Chimera's starting one of the 2 RBMs they have to do in Volcano Summit here. I'm not sure which one he'll do. So Chimera's doing the RBM that was the same one that he used to skip Girahim earlier. This one is going to lower one of the 2 smaller firewalls that blocks the way to Fire Sanctuary. He has to commit the flag, so he's going to come over here to the waterfall area. And entering the waterfall area is enough to update the flags, so he's now committed the 1 firewall to be lowered. Now he's going to do the more difficult trick here called Water Basin Skip. So Water Basin Skip is pretty much a standard RBM, but the flag we need is really out of the way. We need to pick up a particular crystal on the Lumpy Pumpkin. So you might think that's as simple as going to the sky during Back in Time and flying to the Lumpy Pumpkin. But when you first load the Loftwing tutorial, you don't actually have the ability to dive off of your Loftwing. And so instead, we have to go to the surface, come back up by selecting file 2 so that we have the right layer again. But then before we actually get on the Loftwing, we have to load a different file so that we have the ability to dive off of our bird. It seems like that would be the end of it, but we cannot actually fly directly to the Lumpy Pumpkin because remember, the Loftwing tutorial has those boundaries built into it. And so those particular boundaries do not include the Lumpy Pumpkin. And so what we have to do instead is get close enough to the boundary near the Lumpy Pumpkin so that we can skydive off our bird and glide all the way to the Lumpy Pumpkin in the air during Back in Time. Then we have to go to the Lumpy Pumpkin bed, sleep, come back out, and get the crystal in the shed. So this can be pretty tricky. We'll see Chimera attempting this here as Deesh does the trial. Pillar here with file 3 because it has a slightly shorter cutscene that plays when you land. We could do it with file 2, but file 2 has the first time landing cutscene, which is a little bit longer. So what happened to Deesh was a pretty good example of how precise some of these RBM tricks are. Doing something even just slightly off can cause the trick to fail. So while these bit things may, the runners may make them look easy, but they're really very precise. All right, so Chimera's setting up for the skydive now. You need to gain a lot of height for this one, so there's a lot of flapping your wings. You need to try and pick up the lumpy pumpkin wherever it's stationed. I think Chimera's looking around for it. He may have gone past it. Alright, he started his skydive. I hope he saw it because I didn't. Yeah, he looks like he's on a pretty good course here. Yeah, he should be able to land this with no issue. Had a little trouble finding it to start his dive, but otherwise this is going to be pretty good. Gotta be careful not to start a file, though. That's one of the worst things you can do during these longer back in times. If you accidentally start a file without getting to where you need to go, you lose the whole thing and have to do it all over again. Did you bring the grilled cheese for me? I could use a sandwich. Alright, so there's the crystal on Chimera's screen. He starts the file, he gets the crystal, and he seems to have succeeded in Water Basin Skip. He does have to commit that flag as well, so we're heading back to the waterfall area. We're going to bonk into a waterfall to make a fairy appear. That will commit the flag. And then we're also going to pick up a bottle of water because while we've used RBM to lower 2 of the 3 firewalls that block our way, we actually need water for the 3rd one. The Water Basin Skip skips the 2nd visit to Skyview Temple to obtain sacred water and heal the water dragon the normal way. So that's a very important trick that saves a good amount of time. The first firewall here is the only one that's still up. That's the one we need the water for. Normally, the 2nd firewall, you need claw shots in order to douse, and we're not going to get the claw shots in this run, so that's why we have to do that one with RBM. Ironically, if you miss that particular water bottle douse, you have to do the entire Water Basin Skip again. This last firewall leading into Fire Sanctuary only stays down 1 time when you enter the area. So if we were to re-enter this area, the firewall blocking the entrance would be back up. And so if you miss that first water basin, that first water bottle dump, you would have to do the whole thing again. So far, we've gotten the Water Dragon Scale from the Elden Trial. We've gotten the Fire Shield Earrings from the Elden Trial. We skipped all of the second visit of Lanayru by RBMing in the Elden Trial, and Chimera has now made it all the way up to the Fire Sanctuary by completing the Water Basin skip, to skip having to use the giant water basin to douse that particular entrance. We have dueling bits here. Deesh is going to be doing one of the two Firewall RBMs. Chimera is going to be doing one of 4 RBMs that we do in Fire Sanctuary. We're going to do 3 here at the start, and then we're going to leave Fire Sanctuary because we want to come back into the end of the dungeon. So this one that Chimera is doing, it doesn't really matter what order you do these 3 in. This one is going to give us access to the overworld bird statue, which is at the end of Fire Sanctuary. So that will allow us to, once we leave Fire Sanctuary, fly back in and end up at the end of the dungeon. It pretty much skips the entire dungeon. Looks like Deesh is going to be doing Water Basin skip first. So he's going to be heading to the surface and then coming back up so that he can dive off his bird. And he'll be doing that same skydive that Chimera just did. It's difficult to tell who's in the lead right now because their routes have diverged. Deesh has already done the Ballad of the Goddess skip and the Song of the Hero skip, whereas Chimera still has to do both of those. However, judging by the play that has happened on both sides, I would say Chimera probably has a bit of a lead. Roughly a minute. Deesh unfortunately failed one of the RBMs he tried to do and had to redo it. That's just an estimate, though. We won't really know who's in the lead until we get to Imprison 2 at the end of the run. And there's still a lot of difficult stuff between now and then, so it's still anybody's race at this point. All right, so this RBM is starting the file and then visiting a statue. That sets a flag, which is going to let us do part of the Magma Myths skip. And again, we have to commit all the flags we do with RBM, so shooting that water plant is able to commit one of those flags. And now we're doing the third RBM here and the start of what I like to call RBM Sanctuary, because it's not really about fire anymore. It's all about reverse bit magic. We're going to be visiting the Lower Academy statue and doing the same sort of RBM we did with the Upper Academy statue. And so far, Chimera will have set 3 flags in Fire Sanctuary, one of which gives us access to the bird during Back in Time, one of which gives us access to the boss key room from behind, and one of which does part of the skip of the Magma Myths. Unfortunately, it looks like Deesh missed the Lumpy Pumpkin with his first skydive attempt, so he's going to have to retry that. By remounting his Loftwing, he is forced back inside the bounds of the Loftwing tutorial, so he does not get to try again from closer. He has to do the whole thing over again. Chimera has dug up a fairy. That's important for 2 reasons. First, it commits the flag that he just did with RBM, and second, it will allow him to survive this next trick. He's setting up a very precise positioning here, or trying to, for this save, because he's going to be doing what's called a reverse bit warp into Ancient Cistern, which means he's going to be entering the Ancient Cistern during Back in Time, but applying the coordinates that he saved at right here when he enters that dungeon. And so, in order to do this well, he has to be at a very specific position. And if he's got the position right, then when he spawns in Ancient Cistern, he's going to fall through a wall into the lower level of the basement, into some poison gunk. And that poison gunk will kill him unless he has that fairy that he got. This is the only reason why these runs have to get the digging myths. So if we did not have to do that particular reverse bit warp into Ancient Cistern, the English run would want to skip the digging myths. Looks like Deesh has a successful water basin skip there on his second skydive in, so he's all set. He'll be doing the second RBM next to lower the second firewall. Chimera is going to be heading to Farron in Back in Time. The way a reverse bit warp works is you have to enter an area and then start your file at the right time. And so in order to reverse bit warp into Ancient Cistern, we have to make our way all the way to Ancient Cistern during Back in Time, enter the dungeon, and then start the file at exactly the right time so that we can apply the coordinates from our file to the Ancient Cistern map. This particular reverse bit warp that Chimera is attempting skips about 2/3 of the Cistern dungeon. He'll be able to get the boss key right away, head back up to the main room, and get a small key so that he's able to obtain the whip. And that skips sort of a long underwater section going around the long way. All right, Deesh is going to be doing the second RBM. That looks good. So he should be all set. He's going to go into the waterfall area to commit that flag and pick up some water. Hopefully he remembers the water. Looks like he will. He's got the fairy bonked, so that's committed the flag. He's got his water. He's good to go. He'll be heading into Fire Sanctuary here in just a moment. Chimera, meanwhile, is getting closer to the Ancient Cistern. He's almost all the way there. Now, if you remember, in order to enter the Ancient Cistern, you need the Water Dragon Scale, and so in our context, we need to load that Water Dragon Scale during Back in Time. And so we'll see when he gets to the Cistern area here how Chimera is able to do that. So selecting file 1 lowers that log. He needs to select file 2 here as he's entering the waterfall area. And now to load the scale, he's going to bonk into this particular thing with file 1 selected, and then get the rupee. He got the text box, but that's okay. He now has the scale loaded, so he's going to be heading on into the dungeon. And the timing here is pretty specific. He wants to essentially wait 6 steps after he loses control of Link. I think that's okay. So we'll see how his positioning was when he spawns here. It's good. That's right where he wants to be. He dies from the fall damage. The fairy revives him, and now he needs to make it out of the poison before his health vanishes. He's going to be using a trick called a break slide to help him do this. By holding Z and the ESS position backwards, you're able to maintain some forward momentum. So he's all set. He's got the boss key, and he'll be continuing on with Ancient Cistern. That's well done. Deesh is now starting the RBMs in Fire Sanctuary, so he'll be doing the Crystal in Oriel and Pero's house, and the 2 statues around the Academy. Chimera is going to be doing another trick here called a high flip, but in order to load this area correctly, he needs to enter the statue and then exit it. There's a rope we need to be able to climb, and that rope is not loaded unless we reload that basement area. So we're going to leave here. Now he's going to get up on the statue behind him using what's called a high flip. So he's going to get into the corner in this specific position and backflip with some extra height up onto the toes. That's very well done. He can maneuver out of bounds to this rope. We're going to place a bomb at the bottom of the rope to try and take care of some zombie bokoblins which are going to spawn. If that's done well enough, you can avoid getting caught by one of these zombie bokoblins. You usually get caught by 2 if you do it normally. If you place the bomb correctly, you can usually get caught only by 1. So there's the first one. And if he makes it to the loading zone at the top, he's good. All right, so Chimera is going to be heading across the way here to get the small key in the cistern. Grounding is the fastest way to take damage in this game. You take 2 hearts very frequently. We don't actually want to take damage here. We want to preserve our health. For Koloktos, because the fastest Koloktos strat uses 2 bombs and deals 2 hearts of damage to you. So the 4 hearts that Chimera is on here is what he wants to keep going into that fight. With a specific jump slash there, you can skip landing on a lily pad, which skips a little cutscene. And Chimera is just going to be making his way through the dungeon. He's just continuing his RBM spree inside the Fire Sanctuary. So far, I'd say both of our runners are putting together pretty solid runs here. Chimera is in particular looking pretty good. Here's our small key for Chimera. One thing to note, you're never supposed to have the boss key and a small key at the same time in a dungeon, so the game doesn't quite know how to handle it graphically. So if you notice right below the rupees on Chimera's screen, there's a small key overlapping the Blessed Idol. Chimera's going to take out that Deku Baba just to be safe. If you're not careful, that Deku Baba can injure you, and that would be not so good for keeping your health for the Koloktos fight. Deesh has picked up the fairy, so he should be starting the reverse bit warp into Ancient Cistern soon. He's going to be setting up the same position that Chimera had earlier. It's important to use the C up there to sort of cancel a little step that Link normally takes after backflip. So it looks like that was a good position. I think Deesh has decided it's good. So he's going to use the fairy so that he can avoid triggering it while he's dying for bit here. Bomb damage into lava, a nice way to take a lot of damage. Chimera had a nice little hop down there to avoid taking fall damage. Remember, we don't have the sailcloth, so he was able to do a specific series of jumps to grab the ledge 1 level down. You don't want to fall 2 levels down there because then you'll be forced to fight the Stall Master, which we can normally skip. And the reason we need the small key is that that door was locked from the other side. So Chimera's got what he needs. He's got the boss key. He's got the whip. He's on his way to the Koloktos fight. Deesh is on his way to do the reverse bit warp into Ancient Cistern. Neither of these runners has the Cistern clip, which is exclusive to the NTSC-U 1.0 version. That Cistern clip lets you get out of bounds from the beginning of the dungeon, and it leads you to a very quick way to get both the whip and the boss key. So if you had that version, you would actually not do this reverse bit warp and would instead enter Ancient Cistern somewhat normally. But since our runners don't have that, they're using this reverse bit warp to enter the dungeon in such a way that they can easily get the boss key. Coming up on approximately half an hour left. Looks like Chimera is going to save at the Koloktos statue just in case. If you were to die in the Koloktos fight here, because you had the last place you saved was inside Fire Sanctuary before the reverse bit warp, you actually would end up back in Fire Sanctuary if you died. So saving there, even though the chance of death is somewhat low, is just a nice little safety net so that you don't have to worry about that. Both of our players would be using console. Emulators are generally banned for speedruns in this game. And in particular, emulators don't handle Motion Plus very well. So while you can do sort of small things in emulator, doing a full run on emulator for this game is not really feasible. All right, so Chimera is pulling off all the arms, and the strat here is to place 2 bombs and then blow them up. And each bomb does half of Koloktos' health on this phase, so blowing 2 of them up skips sort of an extra part of that phase. All right, Deesh is going to be loading the scale in here. For the second phase, there's a neat little shortcut with Skyward strikes. Let's see if Deesh gets the reverse bit warp. I think that's okay for Deesh. Let's see how his positioning was. Yep, he's good. He should be fine. On Chimera's end, you open up Koloktos, you drop the giant sword that you're supposed to hit him with, and if you hit him with 2 Skyward strikes, he goes down. Deesh had a gold split, so he's doing well at the moment. Picking up the boss key here. He's still got 4 hearts, so he'll be set to do Cistern the same way that Chimera did. Chimera is going to be finishing up Cistern here, and we're going to be flying back to Fire Sanctuary to finish up the last little part of that dungeon. And then we're heading into the end game. Deesh with a little swag backflip there, back into the pit from which he emerged. So we're coming up on 2 hours here. Chimera has finished Ancient Cistern. Deesh is just underway. Deesh is showing off the Stallmaster falling back to ground. That Stallmaster is normally on the bottom floor, but because we've already lowered the statue, his bones just kind of fall. A nice high flip from Deesh there to head back up to the main area of Cistern. Chimera runs into this giant blue dragon. I don't know who she is. We haven't seen her before. But she tells us something about honing our blade or whatever. She also calls us boy. Alright, so this is one of the few times where we'll actually fly from point A to point B. Chimera will be flying back to Elden. And if all of the RBMs in Fire Sanctuary went well, he'll be able to fly to the statue at the end of Fire Sanctuary. Looks like Deesh is using a bit of an alternate strat here. He's going to save that statue and use a death warp after the small key to try and save a little bit of movement. Unfortunately, he died due to drowning. So you can see there what I was talking about earlier. It's very easy to take damage fast. It shouldn't be too much of an issue. He loses the time he spent swimming, obviously, but since he had just saved, he can just start doing it again. Now he's intentionally taken damage, although that was a little too much. He's not going to have enough health for the Koloktos strat now. But he is going to be death warping after the small key, so he should be okay. The death warp strat is not one I'm really used to, so I forget a little bit about the details. But of course, if he is death warping after the small key, he'll be just fine on health for Koloktos. All right, so Chimera is setting up for this last RBM inside Fire Sanctuary. This one is going to be visiting the Bazaar statue, and it will finish off the Magma Myth skip that we saw earlier. That's... Generally speaking, I think the audio is based on who's ahead. Sometimes one of our racers has clean audio and the other does not. I'm not actually in charge of that. That's our restreamer. So I think we're just sticking with whoever we had at the beginning right now. I actually don't have audio on my commentary page, so I just imagine the audio because I've played the game so much. Alright, Chimera did all his RBMs in Fire Sanctuary correctly, so he's able to get the mysterious crystals without the magma mints. So he'll be heading straight to Girahim 2, our second visit with Girahim. This time we'll actually fight him. Deesh is doing the same set of hops that Chimera did, and he's able to grab the ledge to preserve his damage. So remember, although it looks like Chimera has a large lead, he has not yet done Ballad of the Goddess skip, and he has not yet done Song of the Hero skip. And Deesh has done both of those. And so we won't really know who's ahead until the Imprisoned 2 fight, which for Chimera will happen after he does both of those skips. For Deesh, he'll be heading from Ancient Cistern to the second half of Fire Sanctuary and then going straight to Imprisoned 2, likely using the Imprisoned 2 RBM to save himself a little bit of time. So the first phase of Girahim 2 here, you have to attack into his open spot. For the second phase, there are a few different attacks he'll do. Some of them are good. This one is good because when you hit him here, you can do a lot of damage real fast. Chimera has 2 hearts here, but he does have a fairy. Yet he wants to hang on to that fairy so that he's able to use it during the endgame. The endgame is actually a little bit scary because we're on pretty low health for the fights we're trying to go through. Generally speaking, dart attacks are not what you want to see from Girahim. The more darts he throws, the more time he wastes. That was a pretty good fight from Chimera. Pretty good fight. Deesh looks like he's raising the statue here. So Chimera should pick up the heart container here so that he's on full health for the end game. And Deesh is heading into Koloktos nicely. So there's about 7-ish minutes of gameplay that separate the two right now. And I would say that Ballad of the Goddess skip combined with Song of the Hero skip probably take around 5 or 6 minutes. So I think Chimera has a small lead. But anything can happen in the end game. In particular, the Horde fight at the end is very scary because you can take a lot of damage fast during that fight. Alright, so Chimera has Din's Flame. Notice that the firewall is back. So we can't actually leave Fire Sanctuary the normal way. We have to save at the prompt and do some sort of bit trick to leave the Fire Sanctuary. And so what we're going to do here is Ballad of the Goddess skip on Chimera's end. Since we have to do some sort of bit to leave Fire Sanctuary anyway, you want to combine that with some sort of important trick you would have to do. So the Japanese route is doing this with Ballad of the Goddess skip. Deesh, on the other hand, running an English version, will probably do the Imprisoned 2 RBM, which is a slightly faster way of starting the Imprisoned 2 fight. So by now we've seen this a few times. Chimera wants to... he wants to save file 3... or sorry, save file 2, but he accidentally selected file 3, and that's going to trigger the early Thunderhead cutscene, which does soft lock back in time. And so he has to load file 3 to re-initialize back in time, and that's a mistake. That'll lose him some amount of time. Probably about 30 seconds lost there. Deesh has finished up the cistern. He's heading to Fire Sanctuary next. Chimera is going to try this again. Let's select file 2. There we go. So he's going to be heading to the surface and back in time. Deesh is going to be flying into Fire Sanctuary and landing at the statue at the end. He'll be doing the same bit and Girahim fight that Chimera did. This has been a pretty good race so far. It's been exciting to watch. And it's still anyone's game coming into the end game here. I should point out that the only reason we need to beat Fire Sanctuary, or the main reason we beat Fire Sanctuary, is so we can trigger the Imprisoned 2 fight, because that's what lets us go to the past. We don't need to beat Sandship, even though we would normally need to collect the 3 flames. Beating Fire Sanctuary to get Din's Flame actually also gives you Nehru's Flame, though not the dousing upgrade that you would normally get from beating Sandship. I think something might not be good for Chimera. He does not have the ability to lower the log. And he's died during back in time. I don't know if he needed to restart there. Dying is not necessarily an issue because you can respawn during back in time, but if he doesn't have a flag that will lower the log, that gives him the shortcut. No, I'm thinking of the other version. He's going straight to the sealed temple, so the log doesn't actually matter for him. So I think it was the death that was the issue there. That's a big mistake, and that's going to give Deesh a chance to catch up here. If I had to guess, I would say that Deesh is pulled into the lead a little bit due to that error. All right, Chimera is making his way back to the surface. Deesh is getting the mysterious crystals. There's that fairy for Deesh. He'll be fully healed up for the end game. Because of the death warp he did inside Cistern, he actually has 4 hearts here, so he can afford to take 1 hit from Girahim 2 without losing his fairy. Now, I'm willing to say at this point that Deesh is in the lead, I think. Just thinking about what Chimera still has left to do. He still has to do Song of the Heroes skip. Deesh has to do Girahim and then the Imp 2 RBM. It's going to be close at the end here, folks. As a reminder, this is the loser's bracket. The loser of this race will be out of the tournament. The winner of this race will face Lepalog in losers finals. And Chimera got tagged again by one of the Deku Babas. He's got to be careful with his file management here, but he's just got to get inside the sealed temple. There we go. So he's going to be heading into that circle to pick up the Ballad of Goddess and reverse bit warp into the Gate of Time raising cutscene. That looks good on his end. Deesh having a slight bit of trouble with Dirhim there. All right, so Chimera's saving here so that he's able to do Song of the Hero skip next. So it's going to be a Song of the Hero skip RBM versus an Imp 2 RBM to see who gets to Imprison 2 first. There's that hit that Deesh had to spare. He does not want to take another hit and lose his fairy because he'll probably end up picking up another one. This is gonna be close, I think. All right, Deesh has finished up Fire Sanctuary. He'll be heading to do the Imprison 2 RBM to trigger the Imprison 2 fight. Chimera still has to do almost the entirety of the Song of the Hero skip and then start the Imp 2 fight normally. It's still anyone's race. All right, Chimera has committed the 7x02 flag to file 1. Deesh picks up the heart container for a little extra health in the end game. That 7th heart is very important because, as you remember, most things in hero mode do 2 damage. So that 7th heart is essentially 1 full extra hit. Deesh remembers to save at the save prompt. That is a key aspect of doing this because if you don't save at the save prompt, you cannot escape. You have to redo most of the dungeon. All right, so Deesh is heading into back in time. Chimera is already going to be on the surface, but Chimera is going to have more time after his bit to trigger Imp 2 than Deesh will. But at this point, it's a race to see who starts Imp 2 first. That's when we'll know who's in the lead. Chimera's having a lot of trouble with the Deku Babas in back in time here. He gets the log courtesy of Fledge. Remember when we talked to him way back when? That set the flag that lowered that log. All right, we're setting up for that save. Looks good. So again, you want to watch to see whether the cutscene triggers here on Chimera's side. He almost entered. He's almost entering Farron Woods with the wrong file selected. He needs file 2. He's going to start file 1, cancel the cutscene, and we should see Link tense. Looks good on Chimera's end. That should be a good Song of the Hero skip as Deesh heads to the surface. The menu is an indication of the back-in-time glitch, which runners have been using to skip large portions of the game thus far. Okay, so Chimera is going to be starting this fight normally. He's going to be talking to Impa, using a Skyward Strike to activate the Gate of Time, talking to Impa and Groose, and then talking to Groose again, and then starting the Impa 2 fight. Whereas Deesh has to save here. He has to carefully enter the sealed grounds. If he doesn't enter at the right in the right way, he can freeze his console here. He has to carefully avoid these Deku Babas, which are now growing out of the tracks. He's got to jump down with file 1 selected. He has to hold the Z targeting to select file 3. File 3 will let him in. And then he has to select file 1 before it loads. Chimera's on his way out. Deesh has triggered an extra cutscene compared to what he should have. That's not a big issue, he just has to go through some extra text, but that might put him behind going into M2, we'll see. To go through this last text here. Looks like Chimera is going to be slightly ahead. The M2 fight is one of the hardest fights in the game. In fact, I would say it's the hardest fight in the game. You want to slash the fingers on the left hand and try to take that first air vent up. Chimera took a little too long doing that, so he's going to have to go to the second air vent. Deesh has finished his RBM. He's looking to see if it's active. He's heading down to the fight. And it looks like it will be a 30-second lead for Chimera heading into the M2 fight. So he's on the head. If you do a jump slash strat, you can actually cancel the animation of Link falling off the head and stay on Imprisoned 2's head during the intermediate stages. Deesh successfully gets on the head through the first air vent. He's going to do the jump slash strat now. Chimera misses the second jump slash. That's going to lose him a lot of time. If Deesh gets this second jump slash, he will be in the lead. Deesh gets the second jump slash. He has taken the lead over Chimera with a very nice Imprisoned 2 fight so far. And he finishes it off in style. Deesh has taken the lead with a perfect Imprisoned 2 fight. Chimera is having to wait for the ugly worm to wriggle his way around. And so Deesh is going to have a significant lead after this fight is over. Will this be Deesh's revenge? We will see. You don't have a lot of time. Oh, that's very unfortunate from Chimera. On the last hit, the Imprisoned 2 shakes you off almost immediately, so you don't have a lot of time with which to escape that fate. And so Chimera is going to the backup of using the Grucinator to stun the Imprisoned so that he can more easily jump on his head, but that's going to put him even further behind. As long as Deesh can survive the Horde, he should be okay, but there's a lot of game left to play. This end game is pretty scary. Alright, Chimera has finished Imprisoned 2. Deesh has thrown the ceiling spike into the ground. And we head to the end game with Deesh with a significant lead. It will be interesting to see which of our runners chooses to heal before the Horde. Deesh is only missing 2 hearts, so it would be a pretty marginal benefit for him to heal. There's a nice stool you can sit on to try and heal up a couple hearts. So if he's particularly worried about the Horde or feels like he has enough of a lead, he may choose to heal even those 2 hearts just to have 1 extra hit during the Horde. Chimera is going to be missing 6 hearts, so he almost certainly wants to heal. And at this point, it seems like the Imprisoned 2 fight is going to be what wins Deesh this race, but he has to make it through the Horde. That is not an accurate finish time for Chimera. That 1 extra split. That would be a truly impressive comeback if it were true, but sadly it is not. All right, so Deesh is going to chat with Impa here so he can get the True Master Sword. You do not technically need the True Master Sword. You can beat the game without it. However, it makes the final fights a little bit easier to deal with. Yeah, Chimera needs to undo his split. All right, Deesh has the True Master Sword. He's saving, just in case things go badly. Saving is not a bad idea here because you can reset and retain your fairy for the retry. So he's going to do that in lieu of healing, and he'll be heading into the horde with 5 hearts and a fairy, which gives him 6 hits that he can take. All right, so the horde has several barriers which you have to defeat certain enemies to get past. However, the second barrier has some moblins with some shields, and if you run up a moblin shield at the right angle, you can actually jump over the interior wall and skip one of the barriers. This is known as horde skip, and it's a one-shot only trick that saves about 40 seconds. So the first barrier is just 5 Bokoblin leaders with the blue bandanas. Just sort of wade in there and start slashing around. With the True Master Sword, you can slash around, but with the normal Master Sword, they'll actually block that attack. So this is this first barrier here is actually one of the ones that you really want the True Master Sword for. All right, Deesh is setting up for horde skip. You want to enter this cutscene at a particular place so that the moblin spawns in the corner, and then you're going to try and run up its shield at the right angle. Deesh is using some buffering to try and get that angle, and he just barely makes it over. That's going to be a big horde skip for Deesh, because even though he has to use his fairy, he is able to skip a significant portion of that fight. And so for Chimera to catch up, he's going to have to match that. The Stalfos barrier is the last one before the end. Having a little bit of trouble there, but he gets through it. He's got 2 hits left. He needs to be a little bit careful with his health. He's down to 1 hit. This is going to be scary at the end here because there's a group of archers at the end which are very good at sniping. So Deesh is going to have to avoid those archers, or he's going to have to do the entire horde again. And Chimera gets horde skip on the other side. He's keeping the pressure up. Deesh is dodging arrows desperately, and he makes it to the end without getting sniped. He still has to get through one last swath of Bokoblins. Chimera's taking on the Stalfos. He has just 1 heart left. His fairy is in reserve still. I hope. He's used his fairy. Deesh is really trying to hang on here. Got just the 1 Bokoblin. All right, Deesh has made it through without dying. Chimera is not far behind. So Girahim, you have to knock him down 3 times and then deal with him on the ground. This fight's a little bit easier with a shield because you can block those attacks, but without the shield, you have to go through this whole purple hand deal. Girahim's magical jazz hands, which block all sword attacks. Chimera's in trouble here. He needs to not get hit again. Both of our runners giving us heart attacks at the end of the horde here. Oof. I need a break here, but there's no time to rest. Both of our runners have 1 hit left in the Girahim 3 fight. Deesh has made it to the second phase. This phase without a sword is a bit tricky because you have a narrow window to hit him with a skyward stab. So we'll see if Deesh is able to do that here. Chimera gets caught by the purple hands of doom and manages to dodge the counterattack, but he's going to have to reset that. Deesh had some trouble with that strat the first time. He's able to get the strat the second time. Girahim is not impressed. He says,
"You wretched brats."
And if one sword doesn't solve the puzzle, bring out an even bigger sword. So Deesh is able to dodge the first attack. He dodges the second attack. And he's going to be through the Girahim 3 fight here. Heading into the Demise fight, he's got a shot at a sub 230 here if everything goes well, but he could still die to Demise. Chimera slightly messes up the strat. He's got to be careful. Ooh, and he gets stabbed by Girahim 3, and that is probably going to put an end to Chimera's run. He will now have to redo the Girahim 3 fight while Deesh is starting Demise. A clean Demise fight will give Deesh the win and send him to losers finals against Lepalog. That was a very nice first phase for Deesh. He just needs to get through the second phase. But he still has only one hit left. And he is successful. Deesh is the winner of this race, finishing with a sub 230 time of 2:29.31. And he has already popped into the call. Welcome, Deesh.
You have no idea. After that imprisoned fight, I genuinely thought, like, that the way my heart was beating, I genuinely thought it was unsafe. Like, I genuinely thought that I would be hurting myself the way my heart was beating after that fight. And then at the end of I'm surprised I didn't actually die of a heart attack at the end of Horde. Oh my god.
Well, you had me
way too
getting
close.
really worried at the end of Horde. I was extremely concerned for you. But you pulled through. That Imp2 fight probably won you the race and sent you to losers finals.
100%. Yeah, if I had been having an Imprisoned 2 fight, or if I had one that like I've been having for the past like 8 months, I would be behind right now.
But you are the winner instead. So what did you think of your run overall? How did you feel about it?
It was very sloppy. I generally pretty consistent. No extending blow, bad surface split, bad slingshot split. Everything after that was more or less consistent with a few bonks and stuff here and there, and then just individual major time losses coming especially later in the run. But so the farthest behind I was 3 minutes and 39 seconds behind my PB at the end of Fire Sanctuary. Because my Prison 2 gold is so bad, I was then 2 minutes and 20 seconds behind at the end of Imprisoned 2, and I finished. This run is only 57 seconds behind my PB.
Yeah, you
at
had
the end of Demise.
a really nice end game to make up a lot of time, and it won you the race.
Yeah,
So-
that is comeback of the tournament.
Do you want to talk to me about that second Batro RBM there for the trial?
You know what? I know exactly what I did as well. What happened was I tried, because like normally I'm able to talk to him just at the same time as opening the splash screen. Because I've always been able to do that, and for some reason it didn't work this time, so I panicked and just restarted. I knew I had the 5 crystals, but
Right, you had checked to see if you had the 5 crystals. All right, and Chimera has finished as well with a time of 2:32.06. So just a few minutes separating these two racers.
Is that the closest race of the tournament there? I think before it was you and Chimera.
It was certainly the closest race up until Chimera died to Girahim 3. I think the final time was a little more different than some other races we've had, but this was edge of our seat for pretty much the entire time. Like you were fighting Girahim 3 at the same time, and it was anyone's
honestly,
race.
if he wasn't like, I think if just he wasn't thrown off of the imprisoned's head, like he would probably have finished within a minute of me.
Yeah, I mean, you probably gained about a minute and a half to 2 minutes on him in the imprisoned fight because you were about 30 seconds behind going into that fight. But you had a pretty much perfect fight, and Chimera had a little bit of struggles on that fight.
Yeah, I was listening into the commentary, and I was like, when you said, I don't know if he's gonna go for extra hearts, or if he's worried about Horde, and I literally told myself, I'm like, no, I'm not worried about Horde, and then everything that happened, and yeah.
It was close, and Chimera is displaying his sadness on screen for us to see here. I think we're going to try and get him in for an interview here. Can we get him in here?
Also, anyway, I think that the problem why my talking to Petro didn't work the first time for the trial RBM was because in the first Petro RBM in Lanayru, I didn't enter his house with file 1, and the route and my notes specify that, I did enter with file 1, and the route and notes specify that you're supposed to enter with file 3. I'm not quite sure how that would affect it, but
yeah. So I'm pretty sure that what happened there is file 3 doesn't have the 5 crystals, and when you talk to him, that's the file that was loaded. So you got the text that was like, go gather me some gratitude crystals. So if you had just switched to file 1 and talked to him again, then you would have been able to complete it.
Well, see, that's the weird thing, because the text
I do on the fly.
Yeah, but that's
Let
the
me
weird
welcome
thing. The
Chimera
text.
too. Chimera, welcome. GG on the race.
GG, Kim.
It was fun. It was really close by the end there.
It was close all the way through. It was a really fun race to watch. I've commentated both your races now, and they've both been really fun to watch. So GG to both of you for giving us some good entertainment here.
Like what Deesh said, I was worried I was going to have a heart attack during Horde. My heart was beating kind of fast.
Both of you at the end with those last Bacobans on 2 hearts, just trying to dodge them. It was like, ugh.
I know. I almost ran right back into them, is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, both of you were like within inches of death there. So you both made it through, but then Chimera, you had it, your death to Girahim, which unfortunately ended your chances.
Yeah, unfortunate, but it happens. You know, I'm not too angry or anything. That's just how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. The end game is fraught with peril in this route, so it's not unusual to die somewhere in there. But yeah, so how did you feel about your run, Chimera?
I thought it was decent. You know, it's been like a running pattern that I've been dying in Farron like every race. So I'm happy I didn't die 3 times in Farron this time.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I actually had to dodge the Octorok. I'm not sure if you saw, but like I had to dodge the Octorok. I thought I was gonna die.
I do remember that, Deesh. Yeah.
I was 58 seconds behind PB at Fire Sanctuary. So
that's
if
pretty
I
good.
didn't die, I might have PB there. I was pretty close.
I mean, both of you are on really good pace for the vast majority of your run. There were very few big mistakes from either of you, so it's really a high-quality race to watch.
Yeah, I had fun.
It was interesting to try and keep track of you because your routes diverge after the harp, with the Deesh, your English route, going for a Ballad of the Goddess skip right away, and Chimera, of course, you delay that until after Fire Sanctuary. So we were kind of trying to guess while you're both, like Deesh is finishing up Fire Sanctuary and Chimera, you're trying to do the Ballad of the Goddess skip to see who's going to be ahead going into the imprisoned fight. So yeah, I guess that's the end of this race. Deesh, you've gotten your revenge. You'll be moving on to Losers Finals to face Lepalog. And Chimera, unfortunately, you're eliminated, but great job with this tournament. You had a good run.
Thank you.
How
It
do
was a
you
lot of fun.
how do you feel about facing off against Lepalog, Deesh?
I mean, don't know. I do have a faster PB than him, and we have the same. We both have basically the same version. We both play on English, so I'm confident going into it. But again, anything can happen, and he is a very consistent runner. So
Yeah, this route,
take that away from him.
this reverse bit magic route is very volatile, I would say. It's very easy to lose a lot of time.
Yeah.
And yeah, Lepalog had a great run through winner's bracket, only falling to KitKat. So he's going to be awaiting you, and I think we're all going to be looking forward to that race. And the winner of that gets to face KitKat in grand finals. So we're coming up on the end here.
You mean the winner gets to lose against KitKat in grand finals?
I am willing to. I've seen a lot of things in this tournament, so I think anything could happen.
I mean, if we're being honest, the real winner is whoever gets to face off against KitKat.
I mean, that is one way to put it. Yeah. Besides, doesn't the winner of the whole thing get to face off against Jace? Isn't that what we're doing?
Oh yeah.
Jace is the true final boss.
I think he came back to any percent just for this, or just for that.
Probably. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us here today. GG's to both of you again, and thanks for a very entertaining race. And good luck in the next round, Deesh.
Thank you.
GG's to both Deesh and Chimera. Thanks for a great race. Also, thanks very much to Indy Kenobi for doing commentary today. Always appreciate it. And I'm stepping in so that Trez could go to sleep since it is fairly late in his time. So hopefully, I guess let us know, when the next match is. I hope we're going to be available to restream it. So
Yeah.
Take care. We hope to see you soon. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.